Welcome back to Truck Tech. I am Alan Adler, the Midwest Bureau Chief for Freight Waves. Welcome to another episode of Truck Tech. Today, we're going to take a look at hydrogen in some depth, but mostly we have a couple questions up front. The first question is, why? And maybe it is the incentives that are coming from the Inflation Reduction Act. Maybe it's some of the infrastructure money that's coming through. Maybe it is just finally time for hydrogen to make its mark in the trucking space. We don't know, but we do have a couple of guests today who are going to help us work through that later in the show. Carey Mendes, who's the president of Energy at Nikola Corporation, and also Morten Holum, who is the president of Hexagon Purus. He will join us from Norway, where it's a little later than it is here in the East. But we're glad to have both of them later today. But first, before we get to them, let's hit some headlines. This is a big time for Hino Trucks. They have their first U.S. president, that is U.S.-born president. Glenn Ellis succeeds Shigeru Matsuoka, who is retired. Ellis will be an officer of the parent company. And while Hino is slowly emerging from a data falsification scandal on truck emissions back home in Japan, the U.S. unit makes, sells, and services a lineup of Class 4 to 8 trucks at an assembly plant in West Virginia. Ellis was formerly Hino's senior vice president of customer experience. Trailer maker Wabash is on a roll. Not only is it seen a big jump in its stock price following the announcement of a long-term supply deal with J.B. Hunt Transport in January, the company is getting some props for its inclusion in the Forbes Best Small Companies of 2023 list. Wabash ranked number 100 out of 541 companies on the list, compiled from FactSet data over the last 12 months. Qualified companies have to have a market value between $300 million and $2 billion, reports positive sales growth over the last 12 months, and have a share price of at least $5. For Wabash, that was a check, and check. Wabash is trading near its 52-week high of $30.10. Finally, it's hard to know what to make of natural gas as an alternative to diesel these days. ACT Research reports that sales of natural gas-powered vehicles were mixed in September, in the September to November time period, September activity surpassed year-ago numbers by 29%, but both October and November fell behind a year ago by 9% each month. At the same time, the number of public natural gas fueling stations is dropping, but renewable natural gas is continuing to rise in availability. RNG has a terrific emissions profile because it's made from organics like dairy waste instead of petroleum. The Trillium division of the Love's family of companies is plowing money into developing more RNG making capability. It's also working with Cummins to help customers use alternative fuel and zero emission technologies. So let's stay right there with zero emissions. It's a term that gets thrown around pretty loosely. And while it's true that battery electric trucks have no tailpipe emissions, depending how the electricity they use is made, there can still be a pretty significant well-to-wheels carbon footprint. It's less true for hydrogen-powered fuel cell trucks, whose only emission as a transport fuel anyway is water vapor. The hydrogen, however, can come in a multitude of colors, green, gray, or one of several others. Each means something different for the environment, and transporting hydrogen, say, by diesel truck kind of messes with that zero emission goal too. Today, we'll talk about Nikola's approach to hydrogen with Carey Mendes, the president of Nikola's Energy Division. And Mendes has a deep experience in this area in energy and renewables. He joined BP's Energy Trading Division in 2003 and held senior positions, global roles, including CEO of BP's U.S. Energy Trading and Marketing Division. He led the crude oil trading and global renewable energy trading team, and he played a role in BP's renewable energy business, which fits well with his work at Nikola. Also joined from Norway, as I mentioned, by Morten Holum, president of Hexagon Purus. The company partners with global OEMs behind the scenes in developing zero-emission truck fuel systems for hydrogen and battery electric trucks, and that includes the hydrogen fuel cylinders and related systems, fuel systems, of which we'll find out that Nikola is one of their customers. Holum was appointed in December 2019 to his role. He was formerly the CEO of the Safe Road Group, one of Europe's largest road safety and road infrastructure suppliers. He also held key positions in companies such as Norske Skog, Norsk Hydro, and American Airlines. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. Great to have you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Good. All right, we're all on the screen. Let's go. Let's have some fun here. I have a little something for everybody today. We're going to start out. Carey, I want to start with you. Nikola started with battery electric vehicles, which was a departure from the original company plan in the U.S. To go right to fuel cells. You're delivering BEVs. You have some backlog of trucks to build. Over time, does Nikola become primarily a hydrogen fuel cell, long-haul trucking company, or do you see the technologies coexisting?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, Alan. I think, we're kind of led by exactly what our customers want, right? And the customer testing we've done, the feedback we've got from them, really lead us to believe that they do value having two solutions and being flexible. Our CEO, Michael Loscheller, was in Germany at the IAA show just recently in September. And one of the phrases he used, which I love, is, Nikola has two legs in this market. And that really means that for shorter haul applications, where a battery electric vehicle is more efficient and customers value that, but there might be another part of their portfolio that actually wants the longer range. Our FD truck can go up to 500 miles. And so that's another part of the customer that we're trying to serve. So I think in the long run, these are two great solutions for the market. Customers seem to be giving us great feedback and saying, keep both of them in your portfolio. And so we'll see how things evolve in the long term. But for now, I think that's the customer feedback we're hearing.
Yeah, well, and of course, the background suggests that hydrogen does have a play. You went last week. Nikola announced that it was branding the hydrogen business as Hyla. I'm curious. This was something I think you kind of indicated you had to keep under your hat for about a year that this was coming. But how important is it, and how significant is it to actually brand something like your hydrogen business?
I think it's very important, right? I left my prior company to come here to in our belief here, we're changing the world. Zero emissions products, the hydrogen, as well as the trucks. And I think it's important to feel excited about that hydrogen brand. So specifically, we formed the brand Hyla. And in case you're wondering, well, where did you come up with that name? It's very simple. It's the first two letters of the word hydrogen, high, and then the last two of our company, Nikola. So Hyla is an exciting brand. I think it's important to brand something that we feel is distinctive. For us, the hydrogen part of the business, which I run, is basically about finding supply, low carbon supply, low cost supply, distributing it to the customer, and then dispensing it. Once you get all of those three things together and you can offer that to the customer, that dispels a key question, which many of them have, which is, I'm buying this great truck, it has zero emissions, but how do I fuel it? So I'd like to think that Hyla represents a significant step for Nikola and for the industry in saying, you don't have to worry about that chicken and egg problem anymore. We think we can give you both solutions. And that dispels their caution about buying them, because I think at that point they say, well, I can buy this great truck, and I can get the hydrogen solutions that I need to fuel it.
Sure. You have, that is, Nikola has several partnerships for hydrogen development. At one time, the company talked about having 700 hydrogen stations. That was going to be quite an undertaking, given that each was, multi-millions of dollars to develop. Now, that's been scaled back to 60 by 2026. Can you talk about the rollout? I mean, obviously, California will be first. Where else should we expect to see station development?
Yeah, and I think, again, we're guided by our customers and where they want to buy these trucks, where their fueling routes are. We're very excited about these 60 stations, right? And let's just remember, there are really no heavy-duty fueling stations out there at 700 bar, 10,000 PSI that exist to give the customers this rapid fueling time that they're looking for. So I think for the heavy-duty station sector, 60 is a really big and ambitious goal. And we carefully watch our market, we watch our customers, and it's underpinned by that. I think what makes sense for us in initial launch markets are jurisdictions where both the society and government and the consumers incentivize these early adopters, right? So HVIP in California is a great example. We were just approved on Friday. You may have seen the news release for our fuel cell electric vehicle trucks, the hydrogen trucks, for up to $240,000 a truck. And if you add the advanced clean fuel credit from the federal government under the Inflation Reduction Act, another $40,000, you're talking about a significant amount of incentives for consumers, for truck buyers to go and buy those trucks. So California makes a lot of sense for us. Washington, Oregon. I think Canada is an exciting jurisdiction which has similar carbon mandates and incentives. New York and other states. I think we're also, as you know, manufacturing our trucks in Germany with our partner Iveco. And the EU and Germany, I think, also have very supportive carbon mandates and incentives. So those are some examples, I think, very big markets, very supportive markets where I think our customers can be incentivized to also adopt our technology at an early stage.
Yeah, and I think, again, just to reiterate, I mean, the incentives are driving the hydrogen business right now, and that's a good thing because it's the closest thing the country really has to an energy policy right now, which is to incentivize the things that you want to see happen. This is still very expensive. You told me the other day that you felt like there might be some investor interest in hydrogen in terms of some of the development, things like that. Can you elaborate a little?
Yeah, I think, look, in the U.S. right now, I think the U.S. is the center of investor interest in the hydrogen space. And very simply put, I think it's progressive policies from the government, progressive policies, local, state, federal. The Inflation Reduction Act was a big deal, right? Passed in late August, September. Significant incentives for clean, renewable green hydrogen, for investing in infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Up to $3 a kilogram under the PTC. You get incentives as well for carbon sequestration, so on and so forth. So I think what we've noticed, there's a lot more investor interest in our hydrogen infrastructure ecosystem. And I think that's really encouraging. The other message I like to put out there for our investors is, look, this isn't 5 years or 10 years from now. If you're looking for returns in this space, hydrogen, the term I used at the HILO event, hydrogen is now. I mean, we've introduced this really awesome hydrogen mobile fueling solution that allows us to get this out with our customers today. And we can take that, put it in a parking lot, so we can put it behind the fence at one of the logistics centers. So, I think for investors coming in who are looking to deploy capital rapidly in the clean renewable space, Nikola really offers them a demand solution, a clean solution that enables them to monetize their investment. So I would say I've been very encouraged, and Nikola's been very encouraged by all the interest in this space. And it's really essential, I think. Our focus is on building trucks and getting hydrogen out to the market. We really do need partners. It takes a village to build this ecosystem, and I think we're very encouraged to see that interest.
Yeah, Morten, I want to turn to you. Your company supplies both battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell technologies. Can you talk about Hexagon, Purus, and maybe your view on the either or versus the and of battery electric and fuel cell technologies?
Yeah, so we believe the future is electric, not just because it's a zero-emission drivetrain, but because it's a superior drivetrain, both from a user perspective, from eventually a total cost of ownership perspective. So everything that runs on diesel today will be powered by electrons in the future. You have two platforms, right? Hydrogen electric and battery electric, and those technologies are actually quite similar. One stores all the energy as electrons in the battery, and for the fuel cell truck, some of the energy is stored in the battery, and some are stored as hydrogen molecules in cylinders, and then converted to electrons through the fuel cell. So, and each of those technologies has its pros and cons. So, and which one you choose will depend on your duty cycle. What range you need, what payload you need, what sort of environment and operating pattern you use, terrain, temperature, and so forth. So, and of course, battery electric vehicles are has the most efficient use of energy. And if your duty cycle allows it, this is probably the one you should choose. But the two main disadvantages of batteries is that they're heavy and they take a long time to charge. So in some applications, that's okay. If you have short range, you have light loads, carry things like potato chips, and you have a back-to-base duty cycle where you can trickle charge the truck at night, then, it works perfectly. But you go into the longer ranges, the heavier payloads, continuous use, then you need hydrogen. And hydrogen gives you what you don't get with batteries. You get the longer range and you get the fast refueling time. So, for long-haul trucking, line haul, it's just not practical to stop charging your truck every 3-4 hours for, a few hours at a time. So, and I think there's a wide range of duty cycles that a truck needs to cover, and there's no one of those technologies that will be perfect for all of those duty cycles. So it's definitely not an either or from our perspective. We're quite firm in our belief that both of these technologies are highly relevant and needed.
Does it seem to either of you that maybe some of that, I'll call it hater, some of that hater mentality is dissipating a little bit? I mean, it seems like hydrogen is getting a bit more respect these days. It isn't sort of as a certain head of a company or multiple companies calls it fuel cells, for fuel cells. It doesn't seem to be getting that kind of vibe these days. Is that your sense as well, or are you still running into people who just say, well, it's got to be one? I mean, Volkswagen, for example, really favors battery electric for everything, and is working hard towards that. I think they've got a few fuel cell projects as a hedge, but by and large, do you sense that people are accepting both now?
Yeah, from my perspective, there's a natural skepticism where something new comes along, and particularly for the OEMs who have a lot of legacy business that they also need to protect. And so, and part of the skepticism goes, towards, well, you don't get the same range, or it's much higher cost, or it's just, it's this or that or the other. And fair enough, there is some healthy skepticism. So, things like, where is the hydrogen going to come from? There isn't enough, for mass adoption today. And so I think that there is also some healthy skepticism. And then you have, as we talk to the OEMs, it's also hard to focus. I think we saw a few years ago that there was really a pivot towards the battery electric technologies simply because they are A, more mature, and then B, you have things like the CARB ruling in California, which mandates zero emission technologies or zero emission trucks already from 2024, and it's hard also to push both technologies at the same time. So, so I think it's natural that people think a bit differently about it. But overall, I think as time goes by, it becomes more and more something that people evaluate properly and see that there is no way back. There is only a way forward, and the internal combustion engine over time, has no place in that. And so, yeah.
And I think I would
Carey,
add,
go ahead, Carey. Yeah.
if I could add, I think the other pressing thing, which we all have lived now over the last 2 years, COVID, geopolitical uncertainty, the Ukraine war, volatility in oil and gas prices, which we've never seen. I think energy security is a really big deal. And I think whether it's battery or hydrogen, those do give you the opportunity to have, homegrown solutions that add to your energy independence. So I think beyond the societal concerns around carbon emissions and getting to a safer planet, a cleaner planet, I think hydrogen, battery, other types of renewable sources that don't depend on extraneous forces and are disrupted, I think do offer a pretty compelling alternative. And we've seen, especially in Europe, a real change in attitudes towards both hydrogen, electric, and other renewable sources.
Yeah, I mean, very quickly, Carey, I mentioned at the top of the show that there's lots of colors for hydrogen. You've got some green efforts underway. You've got some gray, as in broken out of natural gas, coming, things like that. Is this a progression? Is there some kind of chart on a wall at Nikola that says, here's how we get to X% of green hydrogen by this date, or is it possible to even know that?
Yeah, and I think right now, I think as you get through this transition from fossil fuels, I think there's, as you said, gray, blue, pink, green. I think what matters to us is how do we get the carbon intensity of the hydrogen to what our customers want, right? And I think each one of them have ESG mandates that they have to achieve, emissions mandates, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So we look at it and say, for example, with blue hydrogen, there's ways that you can sequester the carbon and you can get the carbon intensity down to where it matches what the federal government and other governments are looking to incentivize. Similarly, with if you're looking to do electrolysis through renewable electricity, I think one key issue is, where can you get those renewable sources of power? Are they building up? So I think when we do some deep analysis around this, and we're working with our partners, we really like to kind of look at the carbon intensity and then match that up with the costs and incentives and give the customer the solution they want. I think the important thing is that there's many solutions out there across the spectrum that get people to the carbon intensity that meets their goals.
Yeah. Let me say, Carey, one other thing, I noticed, and we had some pictures of your mobile hydrogen fueling. You actually have the same thing for electric trucks through Tritium. Is this a transitional approach until we see a robust public charging infrastructure, or do you think mobile is a part of the long-term answer for both electric and battery electric and hydrogen?
Yeah, I very much think it's part of the long-term solution, and I think it's probably even more important now, as as both on the mobile power charging and as mobile hydrogen, as you have public infrastructure that's catching up, right? And so I think right now what it does is it allows customers to get hydrogen fueling for their trucks now rather than waiting, as I said before. So that's a great leap forward for them. I think in the long term, you will have more fixed stations come on board and more fixed electric charging infrastructure. But I think there will always be last mile fueling that mobile chargers can provide, hard to fuel locations or growing markets that there'll be a solution of. So I think the flexibility is the key thing we like about the mobile charging solutions.
Sure. Morten, you in January opened, I don't know if it was a brownfield or a greenfield facility or expanded. You can explain that in Maryland. But obviously you see some long-term growth here for the tanks that you're making. And maybe you can talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, we see a very large potential for growth, and we're scaling up our operation, increasing the capacity in anticipation, expectation, and preparation for much higher customer demand. So in Maryland, the Westminster facility is one small part of that. We're actually also building a large greenfield cylinder production facility in Germany and also in China. So, and we're building a much bigger footprint than we need today, so we can easily slot in additional production lines as the market expands. So, and I think Nikola is incredibly important in this. We need the companies to take the lead and to show the way. And as a startup, you're willing to take risks that the legacy OEMs are not willing to take. Apparently, they have a legacy business to lose, which Nikola doesn't have. And so, but it helps to drive the behavior of the other OEMs because they need to respond. And I think Tesla is a very relevant analogy, right? The passenger vehicle OEMs, I don't think they took Tesla seriously. It took a long time for them to react and respond. And, now 10 years later, they're several years behind in their own development. And on the truck side, the legacy truck OEMs, I think what I hear is that they're determined not to make that same mistake as the past car OEMs did. So all of them are working on their own battery electric and fuel cell electric platforms. But, Nikola is the first one out there, first one out of the gate. And that's important. And I think in the grand scheme of things, right, this will take time, and I think it's going to take longer time than we actually think. It's building up a whole new ecosystem where you need the renewable energy, you need the green hydrogen production, you need distribution, you need the refueling network, you need the vehicle technologies, and that isn't built in 1 to 2 years. So,
Right,
but the logic is super strong, and the momentum is tremendous on all fronts.
Yeah.
And I think if we have a little bit of perspective, as humans, we tend to overestimate the rate of change in the short term. We think things are going to happen much sooner than they do. But if you actually look on...
Yeah, I've got to
Sorry.
cut you off. I'm really sorry. We're under a minute left. I wanted to ask one more question.
Oh, okay.
We'll catch that one next time. But I want to thank you both for being with me today. Just briefly, next week on Truck Tech, we'll talk about powertrains from A to Z with Jose Sampiero, Cummins' new executive director and general manager of the North American on-highway business. Maybe a second guest. We'll see about that. This Friday in Truck Tech, the newsletter will update the progress in the scaling of hydrogen-making electrolyzers, which were mentioned here briefly. They are key to fueling the fuel cells like we discussed today. You can subscribe to Truck Tech for delivery by email or read it online at freightwaves.com. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next week.
In one city over 3 days to showcase all you have to offer. Because your successful connections at an event like F3 move all of us forward. Don't believe us? Join us in June.